So as we have seen, the story of Savitri is in three parts. Both the traditional story and Savitri the book, as Aurobindo has retold it. The first part is about Ashwapati's yoga. And we read something of that in the first session yesterday. Not the yoga as such, because that's a long subject, but the fulfillment of the yoga. What is the boon that he has asked for and which has been granted. Similarly, the second part is about Savitri's yoga. These two things have not been elaborated in the traditional story. And Aurobindo takes it to a great height and depth and detail. Again, we did not touch upon the details of Savitri's yoga because time limiting factor. But the culmination of Savitri's yoga, which ends in a complete identification with the Divine Mother in all her aspects, transcendent, universal and individual. Now comes the third part. In the traditional story, it is Savitri's debate with death and eventually winning back Satyavan by her wisdom, by her ability to persuade death to release Satyavan. Here now we see a slightly different Savitri. She is wise, but she is powerful. She does not request, but she demands from death. And that's where we shall begin. On page 587. Now this book is again, it's very interesting, and like each book there are several things for us. People often ask, where is the practical side? Now everything is practical. So when death speaks, we become conscious that do these thoughts come to us? And if we have similar thoughts, we should know that death is speaking to us or through us. It's as simple as that. So we know what are the thoughts which are coming from the domain of death. Similarly, when we take a certain attitude, certain stance, certain approach, we know that this is the approach that the divine would want us to take. So it's extremely practical. Look at what death speaks. And when we read that, we will see that how very often we hear these words from all around. And when we hear it, we should be careful. We should know that who is speaking. It may take any form. It may take the form of our loved ones, our close ones, of big people or whatever. But basically it is death who speaks. Page 586. Death is speaking to Savitri. And what is he speaking about? What man is. Now you see, death is very smart. He'll tell a truth, but he'll tell a partial truth. Or he'll slightly tweak it. This is how this famous line, devil quoting the scripture. He twists it just a little, but enough to change the whole sense. So look what he's saying. A fragile miracle of thinking clay. Page 586, the last 7-8 lines from below. Armed with illusions walks the child of time. What is man? He's not, there is nothing immortal about him. He's a child of time. He's created and is destroyed. To fill the void around he feels and dreads. The void he came from and to which he goes. Death is saying he comes from nothing, goes back to nothing. We'll see what Savitri will reply in a moment. He magnifies his self and names it God. Number of psychological disciplines talk about it. What is God? Man has created him in his image. There is no God. It is man's projection. It is also, as I said, there is a truth in it, but not the full truth, not the only truth. He calls the heavens to help his suffering hopes. He sees above him with a longing heart bare spaces more unconscious than himself, that have not even his privilege of mind. So when man lifts his hands towards the skies and says, Lord, come. So he says, what is there? It's just a bare space, cold void. Whom are you calling? There is nobody above. And empty of all, but their unreal blue. Even the color of the sky is unreal. And peoples them with bright and merciful powers. And yet, he tells Savitri that, in any case, you want to live in this fantasy world, fine. But since you have come away, I can grant you some boons. So on page 587 toward the end, after saying that don't hope about such high things, such beautiful things like eternal love, divine love, all these cannot take place on earth. But if thou still canst hope and still wouldst love, he has told her, there is no love. It's nothing but an aberration of some thyroid gland or some other gland. Probably death had not updated itself with modern, neurotransmitters. So there is no love. It's all, mind has gone crazy. He didn't refer her to a psychiatrist, almost on the verge of it. In fact, he would have said, I am the psychiatrist. Many psychiatrists only perpetuate this philosophy. But if thou still can hope and still wouldst love, return to thy body's shell. They tie to earth, and with thy heart's little remnants try to live. Hope not to win back to thee, Satyavan. Says, you go back, okay, you'll find love, don't worry. There's no lasting love, but you'll find somebody or the other. And then he says, yet, since thy strength deserves no trivial crown, gifts I can give to soothe thy wounded life. This is the ordinary, same thing in Kathopanishad. Yama tells Nachiketa, see, don't ask the secret of immortality, I'll give you gifts. We want God who will give us nice, pleasant gifts. Be careful. Whom are we worshipping and praying? Of course he gives, but that's not the only purpose for divinity in our life. There is something much greater. The pacts which transient beings make with fate, and the wayside sweetness earthbound hearts would pluck. These, if thy will accepts, make freely thine. Choose a life's hopes for thy deceiving price. He says, okay, these are things I can give you. They are small little tidbits. You can take them and go. One day I'll take them away. So, up to you. But look what Savitri says, few lines below. Now here comes Aurobindo Savitri. She is not come as a suppliant. Please, grant me something. She has realized the fullness of her divinity. And so she says, he is no more here, the Dharma Raja. He has become a black lie. She is showing him the truth. Page 588. I bow not to thee, O huge mask of death, black lie of night to the cowed soul of man. Unreal, inescapable end of things, thou grim jest played with the immortal spirit. Conscious of immortality I walk. He says, you are a lie. Actually, it is something which one can actually, if one looks very deep enough into the whole phenomena, one sees the unreality of death. Actually, you exist in another way, on another plane. But still it hits so hard because, we are all the time tied to the body and we think this body and my small personality is myself. And so too we think the same about others. And so it hits very hard unless one is freed. But Savitri has freed herself from this momentary personality and says, I am conscious of my immortality and I don't buy your lie. And then she asks the boon, 589, where, Aurobindo, the traditional Savitri would end, but here it's put with such beauty and finish. First, I demand whatever Satyavan, my husband, waking in the forest charm, out of his long, pure childhood's lonely dreams, desired and had not for his beautiful life. What a touching, her love. She's not saying, give that to my father, give this to my in-laws. She's saying, I love Satyavan. Whatever he would have desired, which you have snatched away. You had no right to do it. But you have taken away, give it back to him. Give, if thou must, or if thou canst, refuse. Let's see what you have to say. And of course he gives with a scorn. And now comes those lines when he says that, who is this? You are imagining God. There is no God. Everything comes from death and goes back to death. And these are marvelous lines on page 600. 600, yes, 600. The very powerful lines, Savitri is revealing to death a greater truth that he hides. This is what we hear. We come from nothingness, we go back to nothing. We come from the dark, go back to the shades. But here is a greater truth. A truth occult has made this mighty world. It's not the result of some desire. It's not the result of some weird maya which has just cheated us. A truth occult has made this mighty world. The Eternal's wisdom and self-knowledge act in ignorant mind and in the body's steps. It is one of the most rational ways of explaining or convincing someone of the presence of divine in everyday life. Look at these lines. People often ask, what is the proof? Look at the proof. The Eternal's wisdom and self-knowledge act in ignorant mind and in the body steps. Instinct, what is called as instinct in every species, is nothing but the reflex of an intuitive light. How does an animal, if you watch, you'll be convinced about the presence of divinity. Of course, that's an indirect way, but scientists probably approach it that way. When we look at how accurately, when a prey is to be caught by creatures who can't even hear, can't even see, and how they move with swiftness, with accuracy, that's, for us to send a spacecraft in space, so much calculation, so many scientists will work upon it, and then still they are, waiting, on 3, 2, 1, 0, and then after some time they say, it worked. And look at the animal. The eagle goes into the sky and has to dive and pick up a fish. And it's going at high speed. And spontaneously it calculates, the moment it sees a little fish coming, that what should be my speed, what should be my inclination angle, and how should I dive and reach and pick it up and come out. With all our thinking and all our planning, here is the accuracy and perfection. Look at the human body, a small little scratch. All the body cells which we call as unconscious, they begin to come together. All the white cells get a message. Danger, 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 alarm bell rings, and it rushes there and it first seals exactly what we will do. You will first isolate the place. So it isolates that, little wound. And then it starts pouring in chemicals which are necessary to heal it. How does it happen? Everything is unconscious. Even the cells are behaving so consciously. Yes, individually if you ask them, they won't say they are conscious. But they are driven by a consciousness and an intelligence behind it. And this way, if we look at the whole world, countless phenomena. I'm just sharing two of them. Then we will see, oh my God, how wonderfully, in a small little seed, such a big tree, and it unfolds itself. Think about it this way, that a human being with all his mental plan will consult 10 consultants to make a little plan about what he wants to do. And then hire number of people. And yet after, at the end, we say, it's not exactly as how I had planned it. And how this consciousness works in a small little seed? Put it in the ground and it grows into a tree. It will bear the flowers and the fruits. It won't grow into another tree. It just grows into the tree it is meant to be. It's amazing. So she reveals. Often people say, what is the scientific proof? The proof is everywhere if you want to see. But if you don't want to see, then even if God appears in front of us, then we'll say, are you sure? I'm not sure whether you are God or not. And God will say, I'm not sure whether you are or not. Anyways, tata bye bye. So here is this. The inconscient is the superconscient sleep. What is this an evidence of? That even within ignorance, there is a wisdom that is there. So the inconscient is not a utter inconscient. The darkness is not an original darkness, but it is the self-concealment of light. Conclusion dawn, QED. An unintelligible intelligence. There is a lot of humor, by the way, in Savitri. It's a subject in its own right. Plenty of humor. Here is a little, dig at the scientists. An unintelligible intelligence invents creations paradox profound. What is this paradox? Nowadays we talk about it as the evolutionary gaps in our understanding. We cannot, that which is explained far exceeds that on the basis of which it is explained. And the simple phenomena is we ourselves. If you ask a scientist what are we made up of, he'll say genes. Ultimately genes. Genes go still further, chemicals and molecules. Ask him, genes are conscious. Oh, come on. Now you are talking all mumbo jumbo. Are the chemicals conscious? Oh, you are dated. Is human being conscious? Yes, of course he is conscious. What do you mean? So it is a paradox profound. How is it that putting together unconscious material, you make conscious end product? If there is no consciousness inherent in it, then its end product should not be conscious. Unless we presume that consciousness is inherent in it, which by a certain combination has a possibility of emerging out. That's the only way we can explain it. So that's how he explains it. Spiritual thought is crammed in matter's forms. That's what we are talking about. Spiritual thought. This is the original Veda. There is a Veda which is there in the book and it's wonderful. But where is the original Veda? It is written in the heart of all things. We can unveil it. And it's given to us to unveil it. It's not like it is finished now. 4 Vedas, it's over. Vedas are infinite. Where is their beginning and where is their end? It's like saying there is a beginning of knowledge and an end of knowledge. If Veda is knowledge, divine knowledge, can we ever say that there is an ending to it? And this is one argument that people often say, oh, Sri Aurobindo is saying something, which seers have not said earlier. Of course, they have said we have not been able to read it, but that apart, why can't there be fresh revelations of the divine? Is the divine bound or tied to what he has revealed once in a lifetime of the entire humanity? So spiritual thought is crammed in matter's forms. Unseen, it throws out a dumb energy and works a miracle by a machine. All here is a mystery of contraries. Darkness, a magic of self-hidden light. There is no original darkness. And this line itself is so revealing. Every time whether it's physical darkness, some people are afraid of darkness. When they grow up, they are not afraid of the physical darkness, they are afraid of psychological darkness. So if I am alone, if there is nobody around. Then as they grow up, they are afraid of another darkness, death is going to come, I don't know. But if you only remember, it's nothing but light is hidden in it. How liberating it is. It's a magic. Who has played the magic? Light. It has chosen. And now, scientifically, is it not true? What is a black hole? Black hole is light concealed. There is so much gravity that light cannot escape. That's why it is a black hole. It's not that there is no light in it. It's full of light. In fact, if one could plunge into it, don't try it. It's disclaimer, subject to risks. But if one could plunge into a black hole and come out, he'll say, my God, you call it black hole? It's filled with light, intense light. Light cannot escape. I somehow escaped. God's grace. So Sri Aurobindo is speaking about it so beautifully. Darkness, a magic of self-hidden light. Now he is applying it to every sphere. Suffering, some secret raptures, tragic mask. Why it is a mask? What is suffering? Suffering comes because we limit ourselves in every which way. Take death, common thing. Yesterday we were speaking about one of the common things, a young person dies and it is tragic and we suffer. Whoever it be, it's not about our own life. Anywhere you see, you feel the pain. Supposing we were able to see that actually he shed the body, he got up and said, look, I really want to change. I want to, like youngsters say, I want to go abroad and, study further. I want to change. And I have had the experience that I wanted. And we can actually see the soul going and taking on a new body. What would we say? We'll not know whether to feel the natural reaction of suffering or say, okay, fine, I love you, but it's okay, I understand that you have to go on your journey. With mother, so many times it would happen. Somebody, when the person would die, she would actually say, there was actually young deaths. He said he chose to die, and then in fact she described that 3 of the angels who had come. He said, in your tradition, do you have something like this? These people coming and picking up. He said, yes. In our belief system it is there. Oh, no wonder. He wanted to go, and he chose to go. And when you see this, and she would also say, oh, now he has taken birth at so and so place. Then the sting is gone. But we don't understand. It's all a vast play. But because our vision is limited, it's like when we read a book, as I often give this example of Mahabharata, if suddenly you opened a page of Mahabharata and you saw Bhima is crushing Dushashan's chest and drinking blood, what conclusions we will draw? Oh my God, he's the demon. Horrible. Poor Dushasana, such a nice guy, see? Helplessly he's lying on ground. And how cruel he is, drinking his blood. Shish. Horrible. But if we read the whole of Mahabharata, we begin to take delight. Good. There it is. Here he goes. Come on, Bhima, come on. See, it's because we read a small little passage, not even a chapter of life's book, that we suffer. But when we read the whole story, if it is before us, then it's a joy. Even when we know, oh, now this is going to happen, joy. And even after their death, it's interesting, in the Mahabharata even covers that all the 100 children, they come out of the lake and their spirits go to the celestial homes. They all embrace each other, and Bonhomie say, okay, we played our game. Cricket is over, 2020 match, let's shake hands. I mean, it's a different vision altogether. So suffering, some secret raptured tragic mask, and death, an instrument of perpetual life. Is there any life without death? Cells die every day, every moment in the body. Countless cells are dying. But it is, if they don't die, then there is a problem. It's a disease. We know progeria and even leukemias, and they have to die and they have to pave way for the new. Because this is the process of evolution and change. Only in what we call as death, there is a total sudden cutting off of an entire complete body, which in every sense is gone off, and there is a new body which is given. So death is an instrument. Although death walks beside us on life's road, a dim bystander at the body's start, and a last judgment on man's futile works. It looks like that. Other is the riddle of its ambiguous face. He says it's true. It walks as childhood with the child, and as it grows, it looks like a final judgment. So what is death? Death is a stair, a door, a stumbling stride the soul must take to cross from birth to birth. A grey defeat pregnant with victory. It's a stair. Mother has described so many kinds of death. Even there is an instance where somebody died and didn't know that he has died. in the ashram context. For 1 year, he continued to live his body continued to live, and mother knew he has left the body. But he had gone cranky, and everybody thought he has gone cranky. And then, finally when he dies, when he withdraws, then after 10 days or something, he says, very angrily, they have removed all the furniture from my house, now where do I live? Because then people realized he's actually died. And mother tells him, look here, don't worry, you don't need furniture anymore now. You need another body, I'll give you that. You stay on. Don't worry. This is stumbling stride. We almost fall. We don't know where. It's disorienting. It's like a dream world. Somebody has so interestingly said, what if we die and realize that, I've woken up from a dream? So it's a question of looking at things because we have a very small awareness. A great defeat pregnant with victory. A whip to lash us towards our deathless state. It also does a job. It's a constant reminder that there is something more true, more beautiful, which you must focus on. Otherwise we'll be, lost in just playing with toys. So sometimes mamas snatch away toys, so that the baby grows up and plays with the real stuff. What does the baby say? Just like we say to the divine, oh mama, you are cruel, sabse gandhi ma, worst mother in the world. They've snatched away my toy. So what does mother say? Yes, you won't understand. Grow up, you will understand. So what is the solution to all these problems? Not intellectual debate, but to grow up. When we grow up, we understand, yes, there was some truth in it. The inconscient world is the spirit's self-made room, eternal night, shadow of eternal day. And now these magical, marvelous lines. Night is not our beginning nor our end. She is the dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift awaking to world pain. Just as a seed must be hidden inside the womb of darkness, inside the mud. If suddenly you expose it to the sun, it will say, my God, I am getting scorched, it will burn off. The sun, the giver of light and life, will suddenly be the giver of death. So it must slowly wake up. Otherwise, we'll be pained like a small baby. If the moment he is born, he opens the eyes, what will happen? He may get blinded. So for a long time, he has to be in shade. He slowly opens the eyes and after some time begins to recognize the same process. It has to be in the womb. Then only the baby can grow safely. Then he comes out and is ready to face the world pain and the evolution. We came to her from a supernal light. By light we live, and to the light we go. I believe that there is nothing Sri Aurobindo has written here. As Sri Aurobindo has said, there is nothing I have written just for picturesque effect. I do believe that every line of Sri Aurobindo opens doors to discoveries which we may not know now but in the future. And this line particularly, by light we live. People are actually experimenting. If light can actually take care of cleaning our clogged vessels, open up the channels, and we don't need to really go through bypass. It's an experiment going on. I won't be surprised if in the future we actually discover that we could live on light. Mother and Sri Aurobindo actually experimented with that. Right now the problem is we don't know how to convert it into flesh. So that's the problem. But if the means are found, we will solve the food problem of the world. That's the divine way of solving it. The human way of solving it is, distribution and management and, all this productivity and managing greed, all these. Divine way of solving it is evolve. Maybe a new being will come who will live by the light. And when mother told this to the children, the disciples, she says, somebody asked me, oh, you mean that we won't need food? Mother said, yes. She said, oh my God, life will be so boring. She said, this is the state of humanity. When she said, you won't need food. So she said, my God, the life will be boring. This is our state. It may be boring to, some people, but at least to the ladies in Indian household, it will be delight. Of course, times are changing, but why do we need? Who knows, it won't be more tasty. See, this is the problem. Maybe when we are driven by light, we'll naturally feel an inner sweetness without the risk of diabetes. And how wonderful it will be. We don't know all the plan. We just, presume life will be boring. For all we know, it may be far more tastier to taste light. We don't have these senses now to taste light. Yeah, maybe we'll taste light and say, there is something in Ayurveda, different color bottles, their water. Probably something, people felt, but human beings are not yet ready. Maybe you'll say, can I have yellow light today for food? How easy retreat will become. We'll have yellow light for food, and for some people who like chili, it will be red light, and desert will be blue light, laser light. So we don't know. You never know. This is our truth, that we are born from the light. We can live by the light. We can go back to the light. When time comes, we don't have to go to death. We would just sit in samadhi. These stories, there are stories like that, and it's very interesting. Look at Dadichi's story. It has always struck me as a very interesting story. When the gods come and tell Dadichi, we need to kill this demon Vritrasur, but we need your bones for that. Why his bones? Why not any other bone? Now see, very symbolic story, because he's done intense tapasya and gathered all the energy into his very bones. So right then they knew that by tapasya, you can gather energy in your very body. So he says, okay, fine, you need it, I'll sacrifice it. He sacrifices the realization in his own body. It's like, Mother says, Aurobindo sacrificed the realization in his own body for the collective good. And then he sits in meditation. And as the story goes, traditional story, the cow came and licked up his body. Now, cow we know is light. Light came, licked up his body, leaving behind the bones which were, charged with this energy, of which they made a weapon. I mean, we can say that it's all mythology. This is our ignorant way of looking at it. Or we may say it is a possibility, which the seers foresaw in the future. So, by light we live and to the light we go. Please, I am not advising that, suggesting that we should start practicing it, because that will be the straight way to lunatic asylum. But as a possibility, it's wonderful. So this is how the argument goes, the debate goes between death and Savitri. And we can see Aurobindo has lifted it to what pinnacles. Then finally, page 650, page 650, death is sort of convinced. But look how he, in traditional story, death says, you are wise. But what kind of wisdom? What is the wisdom that Savitri has? Because there is a question one can legitimately raise. After all right, everything is fine. But why you want back Satyavan? Why this transient material on transient earth? And several places, first page 647, we'll just, because this death tells Savitri that, okay, I am conceding everything. Okay, there is God, there is a divine. But he is up above, not on earth. Don't try to bring him back to earth. And look at the argument 647. How shall the mighty mother her calm delight keep fragrant in this narrow, fragile vase called the human body? Or lodge her sweet, unbroken ecstasy in hearts which earthly sorrow can assail? And bodies careless death can slay at will? Says, okay, fine, there is divine, there is this possibility of eternal love, but why you want to do it on a body? human body, which is so transient. People, they cry at the slightest touch. And this material you want to transmute into supramental? When, at one time, even the gods, Kali herself appears to Mother. And there are mystics who came and told that, I'll tell that other story a little later. Kali said, you want to really make out of this material? You want to transform? Mother said, yes, hold on. I know my job. I know what I am doing. She kept quiet. She smiled. She narrates this story. Then there was another yogi who came and meditated, and he said, Mother, of course, is divine. But the material is not good. Material means us. And when it was told to Mother, she smiled. She says, he does not know. He does not understand what I am doing. She knows. She has not lost hope from us. Problem is we lose hope so soon from ourselves. Oh, I am so bad, I am horrible. She has not lost hope. That's why she is gathering her bundle, which is so much. So he says that you want to really create out of this material? Dream not to change the world that God has planned. This is the ultimate. This argument also is argument of death, which we hear sometimes from Sadhu Babas. Don't change the world. Go there. It's okay. There is something called God or impersonal, but don't dream to change it. Strive not to alter His eternal law. If heaven there are, whose gates are shut to grief, there seek the joy thou couldst not find on earth. Or in the imperishable hemisphere, where light is native and delight is king. So he says, yes, there is the Parardh, the upper, higher hemisphere. You go there. There is supramental world and beyond. He doesn't use the word. He says, all right, you go there and be happy. But don't hope to bring down. And then Savitri, few lines below. But Savitri answered to the sophist God. Now, he is slowly changing, but still he is keeping that tone of cynicism and, no, it's a kind of a negative philosopher. And so she says, once more wilt thou call light to blind truth's eyes, make knowledge a catch of the snare of ignorance, and the word a dart to slay my living soul. Offer, O king, thy boons to tired spirits. So she tells him, and then page 650, and obviously they're beautiful passages and I am not touching upon it for want of time. Page 650, now death says, after hearing her, somewhere down the middle, death is telling Savitri, because thou knowest the wisdom that transcends both veil of forms and the contempt of forms. Arise, delivered by the seeing gods. This is the big problem. Either we say, there is this earth, there is no beyond. Or we say, the world of forms is a vanity of vanities. It's unreal, untrue, cheat, lie, maya, call it whatever. Illusion. So we start dealing with form with contempt and go into the beyond. But Savitri says what dwells in form is He. The world is God's living body. Then he says you are truly wise. So in traditional story also he says you are wise. But what is the wisdom of Savitri? They are great wise people who have spoken. Great ones have declared, this world is meaningless. But here death says you are truly wise. You know that you have risen beyond the snare of forms. You are not ensnared by it. You can see the divine presence. But you also have risen beyond the contempt of forms. You want to perfect form? Yes, I know it is a possibility. And once again he tells her that all right, it's a possibility, but leave it to time. Remain wise and tranquil. And it goes on. And on till finally death. Finally, to get convinced, he says, page 655, he says, all right, you have said things and I understand, but the final test, this again difference. In traditional yogas, we are content with knowledge of the oneself. But knowledge without power is meaningless. It's all right to, give good lectures. It's all right to build a whole empire on philosophy. But philosophy which doesn't have the power to change things becomes meaningless. So death, this is the final test. Page 655. Eternal truth lives not with mortal men. Last 8-9 lines from below. Or if she dwells within thy mortal heart, show me the body of the living truth. Or draw for me the outline of her face, that I too may obey and worship her. Then will I give thee back thy Satyavan. But here are only facts and steel-bound law. This truth I know, that Satyavan is dead, and even thy sweetness cannot lure him back. Mother would say, these are the suggestions everybody keeps giving. Even now, human mind is full of these suggestions. This is impossible. So we have to have this faith that a day will come when it will be possible. And we have to fight valiantly. It doesn't matter. There will be countless battles. But eventually there will be a tipping point. It won't be as simple as, we say, oh, death is unreal, therefore I don't die. But let us start with this thought and suggestion, it is unreal. And several layers of this suggestion building up that man can conquer death. Death is not the last word of fate. Eventually a day will come when all this will multiply and have a cascading effect, and death will be defeated. See, when Da Vinci must have thought man can fly, people would have equally thought about him as a crazy person. So anyways, people regard us as crazy person. So let us be crazy fully, not half crazy. Half crazy is nowhere. Neither belongs to here nor to there. Duvidha mein dono gaye, maya mili na ram. Let's tilt ourselves fully. Anyways, we are half crazy. World will call us crazy. So let's be crazy towards this. And then, when he says all this, in Savitri, page 664, he literally says that I want to see God in you. I want to see His power. If you show me, I'll worship you. Because the Asura bows to power, not to knowledge. He says, show me your power. If you have the power, I will bow to you. So, in Savitri, looked on death and answered not. Almost it seemed as if in a symbol shape, the world's darkness had consented to heaven light, and God needed no more the inconscient screen. And then beautifully Aurobindo describes how Savitri changes into the world mother's form, living form, because he has prayed, show me your body of the world mother. A mighty transformation came on her, on Savitri. A halo of the indwelling deity, the immortal's luster that had lit her face and tinted its radiance in her body's house, overflowing made the air a luminous sea. In a flaming moment of apocalypse, the incarnation thrust aside its veil. It's not easy to behold it. Often Mother said, if I came with 1,000 hands and all this, then you would regard me as divine. But what to do? I have to keep it in the background. Because we cannot behold that. So death had asked for it, and when he asked for it, then she reveals herself. And then these marvelous lines, when death is eaten up, page 665. Or rather page 667. 667. Now Savitri with the light surrounds death. And what happens next? The two opposed each other face to face. 5-6 lines from above. Page 667. His being like a huge fort of darkness towered. Around it her light grew. An ocean's siege. A while the shade survived, defying heaven. A sailing in front, oppressing from above, a concrete mass of conscious power, he bore the tyranny of her divine desire. He feels divine is a tyrant. Why divine is a tyrant? He wants me to change. That's how some people experience when they start living in Pondicherry for some time. Tremendous pressure from all around, from above, within, because it's a pressure to change. Can't help it. It's a pressure of the mother's Shakti, which compels you to either, be transformed, or it can have many consequences. People break down sometimes, or they develop strong resistances because they cannot bear this light, because it's intensest at the center. Mother's light is everywhere. But as Aurobindo said, it's most intense at the center. That's why he advised people to come again and again to the ashram and receive it, recharge and go back. Aurobindo himself advised. And he would say to people that it's not easy to live here. For some it is all right, for some it's not recommended. Because it's so intense that sometimes it can burn you. And this is what death is experiencing. He feels it's tyranny. He cannot bear it. It's so intense, this transforming pressure. A pressure of intolerable force. Things which people hide as a defense and live life. There it gets immediately uncovered because it cannot remain hidden. There's so much of truth light. It just comes out into the open for all to see. In normal life, what we call as normal life, ordinarily, in the world, it is hidden. Very well concealed. We may have a dagger inside our heart, but we will tell the person, hello, how are you? Good morning. Nice, please come, please have some sweets. But inside we are full of that. But in the ashram, you cannot continue with these kind of social manners, etc. Because if you have something like bitterness, it will just flow out. There is so much pressure. And it comes out to change. If you don't know how to deal with it, it can be very upsetting to yourself and to everyone around. So that's why this is what death is undergoing. So look here also, there is the practical aspect. A pressure of intolerable force weighed on his unbowed head and stubborn breast. Still there are people who would not, surrender. Light, like a burning tongue, licked up his thoughts. It starts with, takes away from our mind the burden of all these ignorant thoughts. Light was a luminous torture in his heart. Things which were natural to us, suddenly it's like, oh my God, this is the temple of the divine. How can I have, thoughts which are not beautiful? So it's a torture, luminous torture. Light coursed a splendid agony through his nerves. Again, nothing written for just picturesqueness. I know of people, when they live in Pondicherry, and when the yoga enters into the nerves, they experience pain, lot of pain. Anyways, since we have come to it, I am one of those who, when I go to Pondicherry, now it's much better. There was a time when I would have severe pains. And the moment I stepped out, whether Greenville or here or there, these pains will vanish. Once Chote Narayanji told me a very interesting story. He had he was staying in the beginning when he came. He was not yet an ashram inmate. He was living in Golkond, and suddenly, he says, initially it was very nice. Then he started every night seeing demons and this and that, coming, trying to drink his blood. He was totally, what is this I am seeing? And then he developed a big boil. And he would go and tell mother, and mother would just keep quiet. She would not say anything. And then he developed a severe boil. Then one day he comes and says, Mother, I am very afraid. These demons come. Mother looked at him and said, if you have so much fear, you cannot do this yoga. He says, my God, now I am more terrified on one side. I am terrified by the demons. On other side, divine is terrifying me. What do I do? He said, anyways, I have no choice but to surrender. So again, the boil increased. Then he goes and tells mother, this boil. So he says, she looked at my boil and it was like my whole body was on fire. And he says, boil was all right, but I was burning. And it was burning so much that he didn't know what to do. So 2-3 days, Mother, it's burning. My whole body is burning. Mother said, go from Pondicherry. She now, he doesn't know what is this answer, go from Pondicherry. So he said, okay. So he didn't know what to do. Money got arranged, ticket got arranged. He came back later on, but this is the first part of his. A very beautiful being, wonderful experiences. So he says that I didn't know now what was this experiment, and he goes from Pondicherry. He says, by the time I left Pondicherry and reached up to Chennai, 50% of my burning was gone. Then when I reached my Calcutta or Patna, 75% gone. When I reached my village, I was all fine, it's all gone. Then he realized that what is this power? What is this marvel? And of course he would return, and slowly you get accustomed to that pressure and the force and parts open up. But literally this is an experience which, one can have. Burning torture, splendid agony through his nerves, his darkness muttered perishing in her place. So if we endure through this process, then comes the transformation. There is a process. Mother has said that 2 things you must have always, and that is faith and endurance. You must have faith that I am doing for you whatever is best. And of course, he says, endure. Many things will come through because she is truth light, truth consciousness. She is not going to act according to my wish and wishes and my preferences. She will do what is in the vision of the truth. We may like it, we may not like it. But if we have surrendered, that's why people think surrender is very easy. No, it's easy in words. But surrender means now I no more belong to me. Do with me whatever you want. Now it's easy to say I surrender. But when she says, okay, I'll do with you whatever is good to take you through the swiftest road on the transformation. That's why Mother said, my child, my blessings are very dangerous. Why? Because they are meant to take you through the shortest road towards the divine. So, all this happens, death dies, 5 more minutes I'll take. And then finally, death is transformed, and what was hidden behind the mask, the divine who is actually helping us through this process of evolution, has worn a black mask as a spur. Now he comes, and there are many other aspects in it which I am skipping, and says, okay, Savitri, you can ask the boon that you want, and see the departure. It's no more one Satyavan, but as someone rightly said, she is now aspiring and praying for all the Satyavans, for the Satyavan within us. And once again, in the beginning, in the very first talk, we spoke about the woman. And Sri Aurobindo brings out this aspect, the feminine, divine. Page 696. And this also explains why, after the traditional story, we were told in the end, as it happened with Satyavan and Savitri, so may it happen in everybody's life. So these are the boons Mother has asked for us. Where are the boons? They are there. When will we get it? When we are ready. Good meal has been prepared. We have to be now prepare ourselves. The boons she has got for all of us. What are these boons? First boon. And silently the woman's heart replied. When she is asked to choose, page 696, 5-6 lines from above, choose, Spirit, thy supreme choice not given again. And we go a few lines below, and what does she ask? The first boon. Thy peace, O Lord, a boon within to keep. Amid the roar and ruin of wild time, for the magnificent soul of man on earth, thy calm, O Lord, that bears thy hands of joy. This is the gift she wants to give us. Amid the roar and ruin of time, things around will crash, clash, many things will happen. But I'll give you that peace which will never be disturbed by anything. The calm that bears thy hands of joy. And see how she is speaking of man. Magnificent soul of man on earth. On one side he is very fragile. On the other side, man is very strong. Because he can consciously to bear with so much that we see around. So this is the first boon. And each time, she is given again a choice that no, don't ask for earth. You can come and with Satyavan and forever be in that infinity. So once again, a second time, the eternal cry arose. Wide open are the ineffable gates in front. Unweave the stars and into silence pass. Because supramental doors, you can pass into that. That's what yogis do, finally. But she refuses again, and she says, next page, I'm not reading line by line. Immeasurably the woman's nature spoke. She is not happy just with one. By nature, she represents the earth element. She binds everything together. The man is happy with his own earning, but a woman knows, who has to be given what, everything she takes care. This is the tradition, and see how Aurobindo brings out the nature of the woman. Immeasurably the woman's nature spoke. Thy oneness, Lord, in many approaching hearts, my sweet infinity of thy numberless souls. Oneness. If we live in oneness, most of our problems will get solved. In fact, in a certain sense, all problems will get solved if we live in oneness. That means we'll live in perpetual harmony with the whole creation and everything around us. It's now, everything is because of this disharmony, disconnect. So she's saying, thy oneness, for many unnumbered souls, I'm asking for it. Whoever is ready, whoever wants it, aspires for it, can get it. A third time swell the great admonishing call. I spread abroad the refuge of my wings. Out of its incommunicable deeps, my power looks forth of mightiest splendor, stilled into its majesty of sleep, withdrawn above the dreadful whirlings of the world. Again he says, okay, fine. Now come to the beyond. But what she experiences. A sob of things was answered to the voice. Because she is experiencing, as the avatar, the pain that earthly creatures undergo. And passionately the woman's heart replied, the third boon. Thy energy, Lord, to seize on woman and man, to take all things and creatures in their grief and gather them into a mother's arms. I want your energy for everybody. And to hold all of them in my arms so that I can heal their grief, their pain. Solemn and distant like a seraph's lyre, a last great time the warning sound was heard. I open the wide eye of solitude to uncover the voiceless rapture of my bliss, where in a pure and exquisite hush it lies, motionless in its slumber of ecstasy, resting from the sweet madness of the dance, out of whose beat the throb of hearts was born. The fourth boon. Savitri asks, breaking the silence with appeal and cry, a hymn of adoration tireless climbed. A music beat of winged uniting souls. Then all the women yearningly replied. She is carrying everybody's aspiration to the Lord. What is she replying? Asking for thy embrace which rends the living knot of pain. This is the ultimate solution. At all levels, the embrace of the Lord. She is asking for that. Thy embrace which rends the living knot of pain. Thy joy, O Lord, in which all creatures breathe. At every level, as I said, even physically. Thy joy, O Lord, in which all creatures breathe. Thy magic flowing waters of deep love. Thy sweetness give to me for earth and men. Thy embrace which rends the living knot of pain. Thy joy, O Lord, in which all creatures breathe. Thy magic flowing waters of deep love. Thy sweetness give to me for earth and men. And then the voice of the vision wonderful. Grants her these boons. Page 702. Descend to life with him thy heart desires. O Satyavan, O luminous Savitri, I sent you forth of old beneath the stars, a dual power of God in an ignorant world. So the boon is granted. And just to end it all, a final word. What is the yoga of Savitri? What is the power with which she has changed everything? What should we do? We have already read it. Page 723. The boon has been won. Dyumat Sena, the divine mind fallen blind. This is the symbol. Suddenly there is the celestial sight. He has won his kingdom. Everyone comes because it's already late evening. They're wondering, where is Savitri, where is Satyavan? And they find that not only are they there, there is a luminous change which has overcome them. And so one of these seers who is accompanying the king to Bring the good news that, everything beautiful has happened. We are only waiting for you to come. Where are you? Where have you been so long? So, someone, Aurobindo described with so beautifully, and one consenting thought moved every breast. Everybody is filled with this one thought when they look upon Savitri and Satyavan. What gleaming marvel of the earth or skies stands silently by human Satyavan? Who is she? Everybody suddenly says, we thought she is our daughter-in-law, we thought she is Satyavan's wife, but who is she? If this is she of whom the world has heard, wonder no more at any happy change. Each easy miracle of felicity of her transmuting heart, the alchemy is. Then someone asks her, O woman's soul, what light, what power revealed, working the rapid marvels of this day, opens for us by thee a happier age. What is this? What is this change? What is the yoga you have done? What is this power? And we close with these 4 lines, 724, next page. What is Savitri's reply? Someone asked, what is yoga? What is Aurobindo's yoga? 724. Awakened, Savitri's reply, awakened to the meaning of my heart, that to feel love and oneness is to live. We are living life like a dead man. We don't realize it. Awaken to the meaning of my heart, that to feel love and oneness is to live. And this, the magic of our golden change, is all the truth I know or seek, O sage.
So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our speakers, Dr. Alok Pandey and Siddhalu and Narad and everybody that helped during this conference. So the last 4 days we have been hearing about Savitri. We are living in a world of suffering and chaotic conditions that we currently live in. We have pain and suffering. So Savitri gives us the hope. So Aurobindo envision in Savitri shows us the way of supreme fulfillment of divinity in all aspects of life, which we witnessed in last 4 days. Thank you for coming. We invite you next year to come. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.